What's going on, guys? It's your boy Jay Rich back for another NBA Best Bets presented by Pinnacle Sportsbook, your trusted sportsbook for the past 25 years. The NBA Finals is finally here, the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks, and I am here to preview and give you my best bets for the series, as well as some data that you should probably know if you're planning on betting on the NBA Finals. But let's get into it right now. So before we get into game one itself, let's talk about the series. Let's look at some of the series pricing that we're seeing on Pinnacle right now. The Dallas Mavericks are plus 188 as the underdogs, and the Celtics, the number one seed, of course, are the favorites. Depending on how you feel about this series, I don't mind taking the Mavs at plus 188. It worked out pretty good for us against Minnesota, and I wouldn't mind taking that again. But one of the bets I do really like, if you think Boston's going to win this series, is to take the series handicap minus 1.5 at plus 105. All you need is for it not to go 7. That is it. They win 4-1, 4-2, you're good to go. And, heaven forbid they sweep, of course, you are going to win this bet as well. So I really like it from this standpoint. You have all the options of the 4-0, the 4-1, the 4-2 wrapped into that plus 105, and all you're saying is that it's probably not going to go 7. The fact that this is not favored to not go 7 is kind of surprising to me. I think it's a pretty good price. If you think the Celtics can win, it's a pretty good bet, and it's definitely a much better bet than taking them at minus 220 to simply win the series. You're taking out one of the potential outcomes for them to win, but I also think it is one of the lower outcomes, in my opinion. I don't think this one's going to go 7. I think it'll be closer to 6 or 5. If you're betting on the Mavs side, that's when you start looking at 7 games. You can see here 4-2 Mavs and 4-3 Mavs are much more likely to happen than a 4-0 and a 4-1. But when you look at the breakdown for the Celtics, it's pretty close. 4-1 is actually the lowest option. 4-2, again, 450. And then the 7 is plus 406. And even if you wanted to really jig the numbers, you could take the Celtics 4-3 and the minus 1.5, and you'll be covered no matter what. I wouldn't recommend that, but I really do like this minus 105. And if you did want to place a bet on the Mavs for the series, I don't mind it, but we will get into why potentially you could get a better number later down the line. Let's look at the MVP pricing. It's, of course, Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic. I understand if you want to bet on Tatum, the minus 100 or plus 100, however you choose to take that number, is one of the best in the market. I did the research for you, but we already know Pinnacle provides phenomenal odds, so you should have confidence you're getting one of the better numbers on the market. But Tatum at plus 100, minus 100 is one of the best numbers you can find. Would I take it? That's the big question. I love Luka at plus 200. If you think the Mavs can win, Luka at plus 200, he's probably going to be the MVP if the Mavs ultimately win this series. Tatum, definitely deserving of being the favorite on the Boston side, but I don't mind sprinkling on Jaylen Brown at plus 631. I don't mind putting some money on Kyrie Irving at 879, even though I think that's a less likely outcome compared to Luka. Instead of betting on Tatum, I would probably just split my money between Brown and Irving and then take Luka as well. Because I don't know what it is, just the plus 100 for Tatum, it just doesn't really do it for me. I don't really like betting on him at that number because the big thing here is if for some reason the Mavs win game one, which, they could do. They're very good on the road. They've been great against the spread all year long. They've been great against the spread in the playoffs. We'll see what happens in game one, but if for some reason at any point, maybe Brown has a big game, like Tatum will be the one who loses steam in the MVP market. And at which point he would be a much better bet. So that's where at that minus 100, if he doesn't go off in game one and they win big or something, like there is an opportunity to get a better number potentially after game one. And especially if the Mavs ultimately win, because then, of course, Luka would be the favorite and Tatum would probably be closer to plus 150, plus 160, and Luka would probably be down to like plus 120, maybe even minus 100, minus 105. So that's where, for me, I'd be splitting my money between Brown and Irving. Those are the two other guys I really like, especially for their price. And I'd put in a bet on Luka Doncic. I mean, I want to see Luka win the NBA Finals MVP. I don't necessarily want to see the Mavs win, but if they did win, Luka, to me, is the clear favorite. He won the Conference Finals MVP. It was actually Jaylen Brown who won the Conference Finals MVP for the Boston Celtics, and deservedly so. So that's why I'd rather place the bet on Jaylen Brown and Irving and split that money a little bit for a potentially larger payout than putting down a lot of money to win a lot less on Jason Tatum. But let's talk about the game itself. Game 1 is in Boston. The Boston Celtics -6.5 favorites, which is interesting, right? The Celtics have been phenomenal at home. We expect them to be ready for this game. We know what happened last time they played in the finals. They ultimately didn't get it done, but now they have a much more experienced team. They're ready for the moment, more maturity from Brown and Tatum. I think they're going to play a phenomenal game, and that's why I personally will be backing the Celtics in the Game 1 at the -6.5. One of the main reasons why I really like the Boston Celtics in Game 1 is that home favorites over the past 10 seasons are 8-2 against the spread in Game 1. The other key data point here is that over the last 10 seasons, the winning team is 51-3-2 against the spread, so a 94% hit rate. Of course, if the Mavericks win, they're going to cover the spread because they're underdogs, but it also means that there's more value taking the Dallas Mavericks money line than there is to take them to cover the 6.5. Because if you don't think they're going to win, but they can cover, history shows that does not happen in the NBA Finals. If you think the Boston Celtics are going to win, you do not take the money line. You take the 6.5 because history shows us 94% of the time over the last 10 seasons, the winning team covers the spread. And so keep that in mind throughout the entire series because that is a very important data point. If you're betting on the underdog, you want to take the money line. And if you're betting on the favorite, you want to take the spread. So as I mentioned, we will be taking the Boston Celtics -6.5 to open up our best bets for Game 1. The over-under at 215 is very interesting to me because I don't really love either side. There is still the trend that finals tend to go under, especially the later in the series that you get. But early on, there can be some fireworks and some big games. I think that 215 is a more than fair number. But one of the numbers I really like, even at the -118 pricing, is the Dallas Mavericks over 103.5. And the most interesting part about this 103.5 number is dating back to the conference semifinals and the conference finals. You take all of those games together, the Mavericks have hit 104 points or more in 8 of 11 games. And the most important data point here, or at least to me the most interesting one, they are 8-0 in every single one of those games. So the interesting thing here, they are favored to go over the 103.5. And in the past 2 series, they have won every single game. They've gone over 103.5 points. Now, personally, I don't think they're going to win this game, even if they do hit 104 or more points. But it's very interesting to look at the past 2 series and say, man, when they hit that number, they have been winning those games. And it's just something to keep in mind when you're talking about betting in this series. The 110.5 is a great number for the Celtics. It's also favored to go over. But the key number is actually 115 points. When teams go over 115 points, they cover the spread at a 65% rate. And when they are under 104 points, that number drops all the way to 35% to cover the spread. So you want to be above that 104 mark to cover a spread if you're an underdog, and you want to be over 115 if you can as a favorite, because those have been the key numbers when trying to cover spreads in the NBA Finals over the past few seasons. So that's where my head is at for this series right now. Obviously, there's still a lot to figure out. Porzingis going to be coming back. He's practicing. We fully expect him to make an impact in this series. But it really is going to be Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving versus Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. With all that being said, let's do a quick recap of the best bets. If you're a Mavericks fan and you think the Mavs are going to win, I personally would bet them on the series pricing after Game 1 because I do believe they are going to lose that first game. But if you think they got a shot to win, that plus 188 is waiting for you on Pinnacle Sportsbook. But in my opinion, the Celtics at that plus 105 for the series handicap minus 1.5 is one of the better bets you'll find on the board right now on Pinnacle Sportsbook. And then for Game 1, I'll be taking the Boston Celtics minus 6.5. And I'll be taking the Dallas Mavericks over 103.5 points on their team total. Luka Doncic, Jaylen Brown, and Kyrie Irving. I'm staying away from Jason Tatum. He could absolutely win it, but that's where my head's at right now for NBA Finals MVP. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can follow me on Twitter or X at your boy Jay Rich, and make sure you're following Pinnacle across all of our socials. Good luck betting on the NBA Finals, and as always, bet smart and bet Pinnacle. I'll see you guys next week. I'm out. Peace.